Hello, this is George Sandman. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. And Growth Drive is a system used by business advisors to drive client profits, growth, and value. Now, we're also a community. Every week we get together to talk about all things business advisor, everything clients, cases, things we're seeing out in the world. Now, tune in here to this podcast, and you can join the conversation by scanning this QR code, passcode 867-5309. Jump into the conversation. Everyone's welcome. We're looking forward to having you. So here we go. On with the show.
Tim, how many people you got now? You were up over 12 previously.
Yeah, it's still bouncing around. You know, there's always a few people last minute that can't make it. But at one point in time, we had 20 possible for 16 seats. And we were deciding how firm to get with some of the people who hadn't, given us a hard confirm. But I think right now we're sitting right at 15 or 16 people. And that's all the room will hold. It's an intimate room. It's at the Capitol Grill in downtown Baltimore. It's a nice place, and they've got a room they call the wine room it's got wine racks in it, and you'd have a hard time putting more than 20 people in it. So we've got 16 guests plus what we're calling the kids table, which is where all of our people are going to sit.
And did you charge for this, or is this gratis?
No, don't tell Mike, but we didn't charge for it. But so it's gratis. It's just a classic marketing event. I mean, this is what I learned about going through C3D, the whole marketing event thing. So we've been talking about, we wanted to do one last fall and then didn't. And things shaped up in between then and now. Ran into a couple of BD people who've been very helpful with us here in the market. In fact, going to this venue is a place that one of the BD guys uses all the time. So it's nice having him as a Sherpa to make the way. We haven't had to do any of those efforts, but most of the people coming are COIs. So several of them are just businesses that could be prospects of ours. Several of them are hybrid. They've expressed an interest in what we do for their business, but they also have a big book of business with business owners. And the vast majority of them are, wealth advisors or people who have, the private equity investors or whatever. They maybe a couple family office people. So we're really grooming the next crop of marketing event hosts, or just. So we got a double win with them. One is that they would be convinced when they go through this process that they should start referring clients to us. Those are our super who's. I've mentioned that before. Rather than just a business who wants us to help them out, which we'd be happy to work with, we'd rather plug into these sources of dozens of businesses that would just keep feeding us. And the extra win there would be if they wanted to host a marketing event like this for their book of business. So we're looking for a couple of ways to thrive through this event.
Wealth planners seem to use this approach all the time. I'd say monthly I get a postcard in the mail inviting me to a dinner at Morton's or someplace. And I don't know if you guys have anywhere where you live, Anderson Windows, Anderson Renewal. Actually it was a startup here in the Portland area. And even they do it, which makes me wonder exactly how much new windows cost. They're always offering free get-togethers for a dinner, and they're always offering a discount. For them, it's like once a week I get a card from them.
The windows come with a timeshare?
I don't know.
We're excited.
I wish you lots of luck tomorrow.
Thank you. We put a lot of work. George has done a magnificent job with the deck he's using. He's tickled.
Oh yeah, that new deck is so much better than what the Google Drive had one from 23, which was nothing by comparison.
Yeah, and it's improving daily. So we put a strong call to action into the end of it. We've come up with the Larry Prince 2.0 book your appointment with us worksheet where they actually have to check. I've seen him do this, and it's amazing. It just works like Yoda, or like Obi-Wan talking to the stormtroopers that they don't need to worry about you. He hands this out to people, and they just wind up signing up. But there's one of the slides in the deck shows an abbreviated version of the the three dimensions of business growth. Instead of listing 8 for each, it's only 5, but we're asking them to check the things that are giving them the greatest concern right now. And then because we got 16 people in the room, we can't afford to pass around one sheet. They'd never last. They'd never stick around to fill it out. So we're giving everybody a sheet and having them pick the 3 best days and times for our meeting. And then we'll reconcile or call me if you need something, right? And then we're also, after in my conversation with George yesterday, we're adding the takeaway, which it was another one of Larry's, recommendations or requirements, that we ask everybody to say what their biggest takeaway was, like a Alex Council meeting, right? And we're going to actually have them write that on the sheet too, so we can see it later instead of us having to do it from memory. So it's a hybrid piece. I'm happy to share it. I'm sure you guys can take it to the next level, but happy to throw a rung in the ladder.
I was at a big conference in Nashville last week, and we had immediate polling being done. They just flashed a QR code on the
Mhm.
screen, used their phones to do it, and we were getting 50, 70 responses immediately, and they were automatically tabulating it while it was on there. So might be something for a larger group sometime.
Mhm.
Ed, you're shaking your head. Yes, you're the last person I would think that would be familiar with that. So,
It's been it was done at 3 or 4 events that I was at last year, and one of them only had like 25 people in presence, but they had a real gigantic cross section of attendees, but most of them were all doing some form of consulting or exit planning type of thing. And it was put on for accountants, CPAs, et cetera. But over half of the people in the room were practicing more as financial planners, and they were getting instant response, and they were um, showing calibration of CPA versus people who were practicing as financial planners
oh,
versus people who were doing only tax. Interesting analysis, though.
well, good morning, Joe and Larry. You two are very quiet. And Paul, you haven't said a word, but
Okay, I'll say a word. So, a few of you I remember from a prior call. My name's Paul Sestari, and George has been kind of gracious in spending a bit of time with me as I'm assessing, do I get into the business that you guys are in some fashion? Worked 30 plus years for a company called Barnes Group, heading up IT, and prior to that, as a CPA and CFO type roles and that type of thing. And so, um, I've been looking at a couple different opportunities to kind of strike into the business. And as I mentioned, George has been gracious in providing some introductions and saying, hey, uh, sit in on the conversation. If you could add anything, great. But appreciate that. And Tim, you and I had an offline discussion previously, which was great. So that's me. I'll be quiet,
Paul, where
but
are you located?
yeah, I'm in Brantford, Connecticut.
Where in Connecticut?
Brantford
Brantford.
by the shore. Yep.
What do you envision yourself doing?
Well, I uh, I was kind of thinking that, there's a unique space for somebody with both a finance and an IT background. I'm getting more interest in the IT side of things. And what do I envision myself doing is, potentially taking a company that's struggling with growth and thinking towards exit, and how can I help them based on my industry background to think through a combination of what are the IT systems and processes, what are the finance elements you need to think about, and then starting to meld in where AI can play a role in that type of thing. But to date, nothing's like come about that I'm like dove in with both feet. And honestly, as I think about where I've had a couple opportunities, I think about, gee, how quickly this could go beyond one person, and then you need a legion or partners that you bring in for other specialty areas because, if a company's like thinking of exit planning in 3 years and has a series of areas that need to get addressed, how do you develop that, network to know who to turn to? And it seems like this is one organization that is, kind of built for that. But, curious to you guys who I imagine are all individual practitioners. How do you think about that if you're suddenly things are getting larger than just what one person can do or what you want to do based on how many hours you've ascribed for yourself?
Has George connected you with Marie Benedetto right up the road from you on 91?
Absolutely, yeah. She's the one that introduced me to the company here, to George and Growth Drive. Absolutely. Marie and I worked together at EY several years ago. Yeah.
Okay, great, great.
I just glanced at your LinkedIn, Paul. EY was, yeah, a few years ago.
Quite a few, yes. That was
That's more than a day or two old, right there, Barry.
we grew up together back then, back in the day. So yeah,
Wow.
long before my industry experience with Barnes Group. Yes.
So,
Yeah, but yeah,
any
sorry, I was
question?
just gonna say that was a great network that has continued to be a great network of people. Oh, what do we have there?
I think it was the 2001 finalist for the Columbus EY Entrepreneur of the Year.
Nice.
That is a little, it's been a little while.
There you go. Been
Any
longer than that for me.
questions this morning, Paul, for us, besides listening in?
Um, I no, I love to listen in here, but I think you know my what's burning on my mind is where since I've left my company, I'm spending a lot of time just learning about AI, practicing it with it myself, messing around with some vibe coding and that kind of stuff. Just curious to see for you guys how much is it already changed what you do and how you think about what you do, and is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? How do you view it, and are you leveraging it, in a positive way? Just curious there.
Every one of us is using it almost extensively, and see it as a great opportunity to lessen our workload and improve the quality of what we deliver. I saw Ed shaking his head up and down as he said that, and
Yeah, I said one of the things that I found out that AI doesn't have a way of tricking you. I ended up with two Microsoft accounts because of the way Microsoft sends emails out and everything.
yeah,
And so I ended up with one account because it has Copilot on it, and that's of course one of the things when I attended a conference, they said the one thing you don't want to use is Copilot. You're so much ahead with Perplexity, Claude, and let's see, two or three others. And they said, in probably by 28, there will be an overall AI account that will allow you to consolidate all of those into one AI servicer.
yeah. If the trucking industry and telematics and subscriptions is any example, that'll never happen. There's just too much in proprietary and all the money that they've got invested to be able to just have one that will work with all of them.
I
That's
think
just my
I think
guess.
it's I think it's here already, and I actually just saw it on the what pop up. It had Claude, Perplexity, had them all in the same search function. I was like, well, it seems too weird, so I didn't follow up. But here's a good example using the technology, right? This is the Plod that the recording device that George refers to.
Yeah.
His is actually one that connects to the, but oftentimes um, when we're in those conversations with owners, we want to make it more casual, and you're sitting there writing, and and the owner or whoever you're interviewing is always interested in what are you writing, right? In this way, this actually you can actually preform the interview format on as a template in the background. So when you complete your interview, the template will be auto-filled with all that. So you might have a conversation about their wives and the wife and their kids and all that stuff. It kind of filters all that out into the point where it's necessary. Sometimes the
So
stuff just it just but it knows what to transcribe and give you a really good accounting. So just as simple as applying that AI technology in our real world um, makes it hours and a lot more accurate, quite frankly. It does a better job listening than we do. That's why women get a better grades for listening than men, right? So this helps us. It helps us with our weakness, if you will. So that's I think George has that now in the Perplexity or in the Claude, and he's integrating it. So it's a good example of how current. This will be just like I think Paul said. This will, or Ed said this will be antiquated in probably less than a year, and it'll be something new, different. But meanwhile, you just try to stay up with the things as best as possible.
Paul, are you talking in terms of how we use AI or how our business owner clients are using AI, or both?
Actually, both, because the how you're using AI is no surprise. I've seen those tools, and I think you're exactly right that they can just free up time for you, and with intelligence that you couldn't bring on your own, to the listening skills and organizational and that type of thing. And yet, how the clients are using them and how the clients can and will use them and how you can advise them to best use them
Hmm.
is moving so fast, especially in a world where um, it's now then vogue to say, how many headcount can I cut out as a result of applying good AI, or do I use it as a growth tool, to enable growth, particularly, with this group's, moniker, growth drive, to the extent that it's a much better problem to have when a company is driving towards growth, and maybe it's a matter of getting more work done and producing more product with the same amount of people and leveraging AI to go do that. So a bit of both,
Exactly.
but I think it's the client side of it that makes me wonder, that's changing at such a pace. Do you need a professional firm that's going to really bring to bear what the ultimate value can be, or can the tools at your disposal help you do as one person what might have taken a larger scale firm before us? So yeah.
I'll I'll share an example from yesterday with a client, $130 million container business, and the CEO owner is very reticent about using AI in any capacity. It's just how he's built. He's built an amazing business. He doesn't think he needs to. His son, who is going to be a superstar CEO, who I spent a lot of time with both of them, but also now the son, who's COO, he's saying to himself, my father doesn't get this. So yesterday, what we did on our monthly one-to-one, me and the son, we used one of the agents for ChatGPT that I have access to. George has one called Claire. There's a couple others I use. And we did a deep dive in to help them solve a problem. And what the problem is they don't have access to marketplace information in real time. What are the things happening globally that are affecting container business? Oil prices going up, how does it affect them? Tariffs, how does it affect them? Changes in competitive in the East Coast, how does it affect them? They need to have a grasp of that, and they don't do a good job. And so what we ChatGPT through one of the agents is helping is how to create using an agent, how to create access to information that is happening in real time, create daily briefs and weekly reports of 2 to 3 pages, but a daily brief based upon different factors important in their business. So they could have AI working for them to be a marketplace. Oh, someone could come up with a better word, but a marketplace eyes and ears and report back. It accelerates and compresses time for them as like a extra employee spending all their time out there doing it, and it's minimal cost. So
Yeah,
there's an
we need some data
example.
analytics.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah. It's an analytical person out there, marketplace research in real time every day.
Larry, do they manufacture containers or are they like a 3PL? Are they in logistics?
It's logistics. They have massive, I think they have 180 18-wheel trucks out there in 7 or 8 different warehouses from Pittsburgh to Boston down to the Carolinas. I think they have 8 warehouses, and it's a heck of an operation, and it runs
Wow,
like
that's
clockwork.
great.
But they don't have access to, Barry, my case study will be this company in transitioning uh, ownership, not ownership, I'm sorry, functioning from father to son. I think this will be my case for May.
So are you using, and if so, how are you using AI in the process of that transition from, I don't know if it's Gen 1 to Gen 2, but from father to son, how are you using AI in those conversations?
No, no, not yet. Right now, it's been how do I get better at how I could look at each of my clients and where AI fits in.
Because I'm
How
not
can
sure, I mean, I'm a little old school. I'm not sure that how AI can be used in the family dynamic arena of a transition within a business,
I'll give you
within anything.
an example. It's behavioral. So the owner in his mid 50s is building confidence in his son's ability to run the business. And that confidence builds the more the son is able to show command. I believe in creating, and what we did is create what's called a rapid improvement event. So the son and we chose yesterday 3 employees that are in upper management. The 4 of them are going to do a 3 month or less rapid improvement event to AI, their company, in this marketplace analysis. You get it done and ready and polished in 3 months. When the father sees this initiative and sees the benefit of it, it will uh, enhance his confidence in his son step by step, taking control of the company, which is a good thing and needed, so that the father can eventually retire within the next few years.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, it's so you're still using it within the context of the business, but how do you take AI and look at the behaviors within, between people? I mean, that's where I'm
Yeah,
just
I
curious.
haven't
I mean,
given
I don't
that
know
thought,
the answer
Barry.
to that, but it's an interesting discussion.
I I think the important thing is that they're using something to expand to bring a resource into the room, and the younger generation will be more apt to do that. And oftentimes, the exiting owner or the father of the SOB, son of boss and DOB, right? Giving them an opportunity to shine where and bring in that new energy, the new thinking, and basically pull away some of the duties from the owner. And they're looking for that to happen, right? They're looking for that initiative to one, define the problems and from a different perspective. That's what Larry's bringing in with the new thoughts, but then bringing that and crystallizing it is where I think AI really does a good job of getting very concise with the reports and the messaging and executive summary, um, and it allows the second gen to communicate upward and build confidence in what's going on. So all that being said, it's really we're trying to do is build confidence in first and second generation and who's going to take over the leadership piece of it, right? So there's an ownership, there's a leadership, there's management element, and then the governance at play. So you're dealing with the leadership piece of it, I'm assuming, at this level, and then perhaps even the management level. But that's how I see it playing a role. And At 55, though, come on, he's got to get on the board with AI. You know, I mean, he's too young to be ignoring it at this point.
Well, he is in my, to your point, Joe, he is in my peer group, CEO peer group I run, and our meeting, and I have to get off in about 15 minutes. Our meeting's today. So he's in that peer group and he's behind everybody else. So my thought-provoking question in my opening of the peer group today will be not how are you using AI, but how has AI benefited you specifically in running your company? And so in doing that today, Tom, and it's okay, my relationship with him is very strong. He's going to hear things from his peers, and I'll be mentioning that to him. He'll come on board. Tom is one of the best leaders I've ever met in any walk of life, and he built a $130 million business and a great wealth for his family. He'll come on board. Thanks, Joe. Paul, does this help in some fashion? I mean, this is what we
It
do
does
every
because,
week.
the interesting, element here is it's about people, right? And it's about getting people to engage and adopt change. And so I think what I'm hearing is you're leveraging your experience and the trust that this company has in you, and your understanding of their dynamics to navigate your way to kind of developing some wins without, disrupting the business in some way that the owner, you know, gets spooked by, but can, just say, hey, look at these use cases and look at how this is benefiting us, and may help the son look good too. So, it's a great example. Yeah. Thank you.
So, Paul, this is your first time you've joined a Tuesday morning coffee clutch?
This is the second time I've been
Okay,
on this call. Yes. And so again, I don't look to dominate the discussion in any way. Thank you for answering the question and let you guys do your thing. But if you got any questions for me, that's fine.
I think, Paul, one of the things we like doing is that you tap into our resources, and we all work in different environments. I mean, between the other Paul and Barry and Larry, Joe, Tim, and myself, none of us are in the same slot at all where we work. And consequently, you get a homogenization of input by just being a part of listening to the discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Yeah, and I'm in a bit of a chicken or egg situation with you know, I before I dive in, wholeheartedly to, the growth drive or some other, you know, member oriented service and stuff, I want to see if I can kind of get a win and validate that I actually like doing this, and I'm as good at it as I think I might be, and then can supplement it with the right tools and all that. So, versus other things I've been looking at. So that's where on the side, messing with AI a little bit like you were describing, Larry, with data, you can basically set up these agents to provide you information on, if you're looking for a job, things in a very targeted fashion that's much quicker than and focused than otherwise and all that. But no, I see the value here. Good stuff, guys.
Last week, I attended an AI webinar from a marketing company that's very advanced. And the gentleman, young guy, he's in his mid late 30s, and he's already very successful. He's developed for his business development 4 different AI agents, and each does something different within business development. And then he has a master AI agent that then controls, like in management, how all 4 of these work and coordinate their information together.
Yeah.
And that was scary. And what he did is he talked about having each one is equivalent to an employee, not in cost, but in terms of effectiveness. So he has 5 employees working for him in business development. He gets reports every single day, and he knows who to reach out to personally based on this. Then on the other end, he said that you could repeat this model in terms of workflow management and other processes in a company where one agent is then managing four other agents, and that's another 5 employees. He goes, you could produce a 10-employee company through your agent management without ever having to hire someone. It's both scary and fascinating at the same time.
Right.
And he talked about what it does is frees up human interaction for its most important part, human interaction. So he's a young guy, and he says that if companies don't think like this, they'll fall behind.
So that does kind of bring up a question, Ed, interviewing folks and filling out our 24 questions and the nuances that we pick up in the individual conversation that are hard to pick up on if someone is just filling out the form on their laptop or whatever. So there's that human connection requirement that helps. But the other hand, to expedite, what's been the overall feeling of that interview process, getting to 24 questions through the growth drive and in person, and what's the best feeling of being efficient but also effective at the same time? What's the overall feeling in person, ahead of time? What's the current thought process on the
Implementing Clarity One?
Clarity, yeah, getting Clarity One finished.
That's a question. I think we've had some conversations, Joe, previously, good conversations in this room, and it's situational. There are times where it makes sense to have them think through on their own, and other times where the human interaction of doing it together. I've heard benefits both ways in our community, and I would say it's situational, and you got to, in our discovery process, feel the client and see what we think work best. Some people you could send them the link and they'll never do it, and then maybe it's best to meet with them. But I tend to think I've done it both ways. I think it's situational, personally.
Yeah, for instance, we did a rollout with the leadership team, and we had this list of people that we had to kind of do some assessment work early on. And the best way to do an assessment where they are, especially when the senior leadership capabilities, is those questions, because you kind of understand where they think, where they're, you automatically you can, separate the wheat from the shaft. And so I think that's very insightful, and you learn a lot in a very short, compressed period of time that you wouldn't get if they were just attending a management team meeting around the table. The one-to-one is really beneficial. What's everybody else's thoughts about that discovery process, taking a leadership team through that clarity? Nothing.
In spite of Larry saying situational, I've gotten the impression from our past discussions here that most people would prefer to do it directly with the CEO, and Barry in particular, he doesn't even use it. He's got it in his head and he just asks those things and takes notes. So,
Give you an example. I'm going to conduct with this father and son, and probably in May, a senior leadership alignment report with their CFO. And so the son yesterday agreed. He goes, "That would be great to do this." So, but for me to do a senior leadership alignment report, I'm not going to have a conversation with each one separately and do it. I'm going to have them fill it out on their own. And then I'm going to meet with them to go over it as a workshop. So in that case, I am going to have them fill it out, not with my presence, but online on their own first.
Are you
Then do it.
Are you going to have to, George, consolidate it into a combined report, Larry, or are you going to work on each individual as a feedback?
George, well, from a report standpoint, if I ask George to do that, I hope he pulls out a shotgun and shoots me from South Carolina, because there's now a link in the upper left that you choose in the menu of all of our clarity reports. You click on the three in this case that I want, and then it will automatically create the senior leadership alignment report with all the graphs. And when I had asked George one time, he was surprised I didn't know how to do that.
That's why I asked the question, because that's
so
what they did.
I've learned I better remember how to do that. Or if I don't, I'm going to call one of you and say, remind me. But I think it's automated now.
Mhm.
So,
It is. It is. And
Larry,
that's so much easier than Value Compass. When we were using Value Compass coming out of the LX Council days, oh my God, doing those alignment reports was a nightmare. And this was so easy when I found that on the Growth Drive site. It was terrific.
Larry, I
One of the
realize that
great-
you stated that having the individual fill it out without you there is situational. But what I have found is by interviewing members of the senior management staff, you find out things that you would not normally find out by just having them fill out and having a follow-up discussion with the group. Because they will say things that if you have it as a safe room, that you would never find out in a group discussion. So it is situational, but I have found more success in having one-on-one conversations because it's the same question set.
I agree. Ideally, Barry. I do agree with that. And even if they, in my case, fill it out ahead of time, we're still sitting in person, reviewing it and changing answers based on the discussion. And what this current tool in the last few years, Clarity, that George has created, is the flexibility in use to change things and then just hit next, submit,
Right.
and have everything downstream update automatically. And I
Yeah.
think it makes for that conversation. And so one of the things we're doing, Paul, is not everyone sees the world the same way or how to implement or use our tools in interaction with our clients. And everyone has their approach, and we share the different approaches so we can learn from each other. But one of the more powerful tools is the senior leadership alignment. So the owner, CEO, president, COO, senior C-suite level could be filling out co-owners, very powerful family-owned business, and we could see how they see the world the same way and differently for each of the 24 elements of Clarity One. And that is an incredible discussion to have. And there's a process for holding that type of workshop, and we charge for it. I mean, that's a revenue opportunity to run one of those. And so I'm excited about doing it for this same company we were talking about earlier with the two owners, father, son, and the CFO.
Yeah, it's amazing that when you have that combination, you really will get a test of how well data and information is being absorbed and accepted or believed by everybody in the organization, by the top people in the organization, because they will definitely have a different perspective on facts.
Hey, Joe, to offer sort of my experience, which has been limited, but I've done it three different ways. I've sent the link to any number of people through casual conversations or introductions. Hey, this is what we started with. Hey, check out this link. And then our goal or our hope was that they would do that and be curious enough to want to carry on a conversation and engage with us, which we've had some follow-up conversations, but I found that in general to be less effective than if we're doing it in person. I've done them in person. I've done the alignment report with the team. There, I agree with Barry. There's so much that gets revealed when you're actually going through them. I've done them where you literally look at one question at a time, and you're either doing it with just the CEO or you're doing it with the entire senior leadership team, and you arrive at consensus. Who did this? Somebody in the group did it. And I apologize. It was somebody that's on the call here. I think it was Mike DeCiato had created a list of what good was for each question. Because some of the questions, because it's industry agnostic, some of the questions are a little obscure. They don't necessarily fit with certain industries. And, the one I was working with, the people had questions like, what does this really mean? Mike had, here's what good is. Like, this is what a 4 would be. And that really helped. I found that approach to be very ponderous. It took a long time. For the alignment report that was appropriate, we were doing a half-day workshop where we were getting alignment around just the 24 questions, 25 questions. So that was good. And we came away with a consensus view, the alignment, if you would, on the current reality for the company. So now there's one shared reality. Upstream from that, where you're just doing clarity 1 with the business owner or CEO, my sense is, and this is in development, that the approach we're going to take tomorrow when we do this marketing event is going to work really well. We're not sending it to them for them to do in isolation, and who knows how they interpret a question or whether they're scoring themselves higher or lower. When George gets to the part of the presentation where they all have access to the link to do clarity 1, we're going to let them go through it at their own pace. But George and I and my partner Tony are going to be circulating around the room, helping people, make a judgment call. What does this really mean? I'm here. Should that be a 2 or a 3? So letting them know in advance, like the instructions say, to score yourself more conservatively. We're going to let them get through it. So we're not literally going to open up and discuss the meaning of every single question. I did that with a room full of people about a month ago, and I found that while I was busy walking through each question, half of them had already finished the thing, right? So I was slowing people down. So I think let them go at my own personal sense right now is let them go at their own pace. Ask me a question if you have anything that you're wondering about. And then when they get through it, then have a discussion about, okay, here's your score. How did you answer number 18 or 12 or something like that? But I agree with Larry. I don't think there's one right or wrong way to do it. We're all still kind of figuring out what's best in each situation.
I think that'd be a really good application to for an AI interview. Drop this into an interview task list, right? So then the bot interviews you, and if you get stuck and the clarity of a, kind of like you click that little question mark, whatever, to help give more detail behind whatever that question would be. But they can move through it pretty quick, like if you were to position it that way versus it is right now. It's not quite as automated as perhaps could be. With that additional caveat is if they get stuck, they're going to have some real time, immediate feedback to say, what is it, or what is it we're talking about? Maybe just a further explanation of that particular point. So I can see where that comes into. Our goal would be to have that as the preferred method was have the owner fill it out in advance, and then you'll have some reflections upon that. I think the expectation, and I know Ed and I've tried miserably try to onboard one client, and it was one question at a time. And although it created some interesting dialogue, I think our job is to really kind of bring that to an executive summary level and have some high level conversations versus you can get in some really microscopic details, and you're missing the intention of bringing everybody together as try to be efficient as possible. And if you have some sideline, parking lot issues, make sure they get into the parking lot versus taking time in the meeting. So I can envision something where the AI automatically will interview the person based on the 24 questions. And if they have to get stuck, they can get more information, but it's a auto-populate the results. I think that could be something in the future, and it maybe exists today. I don't know.
Yeah, it could. I think it depends what you're trying to optimize for, Joe. And it isn't an either or choice. I think you could maybe do both. So if you're trying to optimize for impact, being in the room with the person and allowing them to ask questions or watch their facial expressions where they're perplexed, get more information, like Barry's talking about, gives you the business advisor a chance to demonstrate your ability to provide perspective and show your chops and with all your years and experience, right? You're building trust with that person because you're right there helping them to interpret a win for them? What's it going to take to get a win for them? If you're trying to optimize for volume and having this thing be accessible 24/7 and working for you in a variety of circumstances, definitely having the link out there, but especially with an AI, chatbot or something that could help them make good decisions would help to optimize that. And I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think you could go forward with both.
Yeah, and I've actually boiled the 24 questions down to like 3 per issue that are kind of germane, so I can get a better, you can kind of short circuit that whole process and get kind of like understanding the you don't have to have all the answers. You just, as you're saying, Tim, you'll be able to demonstrate your ability to pull something out and actually, an owner comes with a certain belief system around what their problem is, and the quicker you are to establish that as the number one issue to resolve. They can't think of anything else until they get that issue resolved, and it's once you get there, then you get permission to move forward. But finding that one issue that just driving them crazy is the magic sauce, in my opinion.
I'm gonna try changing the subject briefly here. Tim, you early on mentioned that somebody might be coming from a family office. Barry, you might have some experience with that. An old colleague of mine that I met with last week, he's going out to raise $25 million for something, and he is specifically targeting fleet owners or former fleet owners who have family offices for investing their cash and stuff. Um, I don't know if family offices are a potential prospect for us with the companies they have, because they tend to maybe hold on to things longer and leave management in place, or if they're really just another variation of private equity and they're expecting high returns quickly. Tim, what was your experience with the family office for tomorrow?
Yeah, and well, there's more than one that we're talking with, and some are family offices, and others consider themselves just to be like patient capital, like a patient version of PE firms, right? And uh, they don't have to want to exit for us to provide real value for them. Like
Yeah.
what family office manager wouldn't want to see some of their holdings double in value in the next 24 to 36 months? And they typically don't have a team or a methodology, a process, a framework, whatever you want to call it, to predictably increase the profitability and the value and the ease of operations at specific sites. They try to buy smart and do what they can to provide oversight and direction to help the company do better. But it's almost like an arm's length thing. And I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, because different family offices have different resources, but they have, it's almost, I almost like that they want to hold it, because and like George would say if he was on the call right now, we're helping them build a bigger oil well, right? So that their holdings become more valuable on their watch. So I think our value proposition to them is just as good as it is for somebody who wants to exit.
Did you just happen upon these people, family office, or did you find a list of family offices to go out and contact?
I didn't, that's a work in progress. So one of them I happened upon, I was introduced to a guy who does private capital. He's 20 years in private equity and got fed up with the pillaging, and he started his own fund, and is especially looking at family run service-based businesses, blue-collar businesses in the region. And he provides up to 30%, he'll buy up to 30% of the company. So he doesn't want controlling interest. He doesn't force an exit. And he's ready to stay with the company. So he was one. Then since then, we've started working with a couple of BD people who have have family office manager contacts. So we're starting to groom some of them. And I think in the meantime, we've looked at this niche as like one of our super who's, one of the types of professional service businesses that we could really provide some value for. if I'm a family office manager and maybe I'm first or second generation leader of this family office, and I've now got 10, 15, 20 businesses that they're supposed to get better on my watch. How great to have a QRF like us that can come in and go work with those players and help them get better.
Thanks.
And then, Paul, there's different kinds of family offices. You have large family offices that are really multiple families, and then you have single family offices. And
Yeah.
my experience is that they'll both listen to you, but it's really the single smaller family offices that are probably good prospects.
Yeah, there's some family offices that concentrate on just managing the wealth and investing and taking care of taxes and accounting and stuff for all the family members, as opposed to what Tim was just talking about, where they're investing in other companies and holding them. And I like that term, patient capital.
Well, but don't exclude the the multiple family offices from that arena. They also will buy businesses and they will invest in businesses. Um, so they're looking for, sometimes they will consider having somebody help them, but you need to get to the families.
Okay. So we got 5 minutes. Anyone want to talk about takeaways for today?
I think the
Everybody's
thing
mouth.
that I kind of jump back into the concept that we've got to look at are there data analytics that a client needs to have that is holding them back from making realistic decisions in what's needed at their business. Often by the interviewing process, they'll tell you what they don't know, as Larry was saying this morning. Clients will tell you what they don't know, and they wish they could have it, but they still have is a wish because they don't know how to go about finding the solution to their wish.
Okay. Barry, you get anything out of today?
Well, this whole AI thing is I find fascinating. I'm bought into it 100%, but it's like, okay, where do you really start and where do you focus? I think, Paul, with your IT background, you're perfectly situated to help not only other IT companies, but also implementing IT into some of these baby boomer owned businesses that really are struggling with this, with the whole concept of AI. It's overwhelming for a lot of baby boomers, and
So,
more
Paul,
so at the tail end or in the middle of the baby boomers.
Paul, that's a good lead to you to what'd you get out of today that was helpful?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. Like this one prospect, if you will, that a former colleague that does is more on the sales and marketing side with this company brought me in because he saw they were having reporting challenges, getting the kind of data they need to really help their business and all that. And so immediately I started thinking there are AI techniques that could bring to bear that they're not even thinking of to help them get down the path. But in addition to that, I was thinking more broadly, like, I don't even know that they're thinking in terms of like smart exit planning and strategic capacity and that type of thing to really consider, how are they going to increase the value of the business? And maybe that's got to be in the conversation for them to really think about making the investment to bring in the type of help they need to get there. Because they think they want it all, but they don't want to spend anything to get there. So there's I imagine you guys find that sometimes too with a client ripe for some form of help. They think they need something, but they don't, they haven't seen the value in spending towards that. So interesting stuff, but I think AI seriously can play a role in helping towards it. So I appreciate this discussion.
Tim, you gave us a lot. What did you take away, or what will you take away?
I love the conversation that Larry brought up too about the data analytics for his logistics company, and I've made a note to kind of learn more about that. So I think that that's great insight that we can offer. So I appreciate that.
And Mr. Lawrence?
Yeah, to piggyback on Tim's comments, you can have this stuff automated through a bot, and we got to understand how to utilize bots. In my work with bringing out this owner dependency thing is tech builder. I need to hire a tech builder. I need to hire a VA, and then a media kit. And so that bot conversation was really helpful to remind myself that you can have a fully functional staff as a single operation consultant, and we ought to be continuing to push ourselves to learn more about that because there's a big opportunity there.
Okay.
Very
And
good.
that brings us to the end of the meeting.
Paul, thanks for being the shepherd today.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
somebody's got to be right.
Great job.
Yeah.
Way to land the plane, Paul.
Good stuff. Thanks for
On
letting me
time,
hang out.
unlike
All right, guys.
Okay,
See y'all.
guys, have a great
See you guys.
Tim, good luck
Take
with
care.
your event
Thanks.
tomorrow.
I know.
Thank you very much.
Good
Ed.
luck.
Thank
luck.
you.